Hello, I'm Greg Stanton, the president of Genocide Watch, and I've been invited here to speak to you about the situation in India and why Genocide Watch considers India to be in great danger of genocide. Some people would say, well, that is an exaggeration. It is not an exaggeration. Genocide Watch was the organization that predicted the Rwandan genocide 5 years before it happened. The reason why we know that this is a danger in India is we use a 10-stage analysis to show us the early warning signs of genocide. And those warning signs are present in India right now. India doesn't have a genocide yet, but it has so many of these warning signs that we are very, very concerned, and we know that India has to reverse course or it is going to have a genocide. Our 10-stage model is the one that we use, and I'm going to run through it for you and show you why it applies in India. The first stage in genocide is classification, in which you have an us versus them way of looking at a society. You can't have a genocide unless you have that us versus them classification, because there can't be a them. There can't be some group that might be victims or might be attacked. Well, clearly India has that. The the movement of the BJP has created an us versus them classification in which Muslims are classified out of India. In fact, some of the advocates of Hindutva claim that Muslims aren't even really citizens of India, that they're invaders. They say the same about Christians. In other words, this classification stage is very clear in India. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why the Citizen Amendment Act was passed and the National Register of Citizens, because the idea is, and they first applied this in Assam, the idea is to classify the citizenship of people who are in Assam. The second stage in genocide is symbolization, in which the group that is classified to be the them, that is the people who are targeted, are symbolized by naming them, by allowing that certain signs or certain symbols characterize the group. A good example of the symbolization, of course, was in Nazi Germany, where they used yellow stars to mark the Jews. Well, in India, the way in which people are marked, first of all, is, of course, to call them Muslims, to classify them according to their names, because the Muslim names are distinctive, and also their clothing. In other words, there have even been speeches by BJP people who have said, you can tell who are the terrorists because you can notice them by their clothing. In India, all you need are the names. The third stage in genocide is discrimination. Discrimination often takes the form of excluding certain groups from jobs, from not allowing them, for instance, to have professorships or to do all kinds of things in the society. That's what the Nazis did to the Jews. Well, that kind of discrimination is already present in India. And so we have, for instance, in the police force, in the Indian National Police Force, only 3% of the police force is made up of Muslims, even though Muslims are 14% of the Indian population. So there is clear discrimination against Muslims in the police force. The next stage, and this is where you really get the genocidal development happening, is what is called dehumanization, in which the group that is to be victimized are dehumanized, in which they are called by names which would dehumanize them. For instance, Amit Shah, who's the Home Minister, called Muslims termites. That's a good example of dehumanization. Just as in Rwanda, for instance, the Tutsis were called cockroaches. In Germany, the Jews were called vermin. I mean, this type of dehumanization is very common to genocides. The reason why it's so important is that dehumanization means that if you kill somebody in that group, you're not really killing a human being. In other words, it is a way to mask murder. It's a way to allow people who are committing these crimes to justify their murders, to justify what they do. It's a form, in fact, of victimization with the excuse of self-defense. In other words, it's just like exterminating an insect, if you call them an insect. The next stage in the whole process is organization. The organization here is very clear. First of all, you have the RSS, which is well organized. And in fact, it was the source of the BJP. And as you know, Godse, who assassinated Gandhi, was a card-carrying member of the RSS. This has been an extremist group since its beginning. It has always been a Hindutva group, and in fact was allied with the Nazi Party during the Second World War. So we have here a Nazi group, really, in charge of India. The next step in the whole process is polarization, in which the whole idea is to polarize the society, to get people who are in the middle, if you will, who aren't joining the extremists, to join the extremists. In this case, by calling them traitors, by trying to make it impossible for them to do business, for all kinds of other ways to polarize the society. And the reason why polarization is so important is because the group that can most easily or most effectively stop a genocide are people from the group that is trying to commit the genocide. In other words, that's why in Nazi Germany, for instance, the first people to be arrested were Catholic priests, Protestant pastors who were liberal, who were opposed to Hitler, communists, socialists, others who were, in other words, opposed to Hitler, who were Germans. No question about it. They were Germans. And the reason why they were first ones to be arrested, they could have been much more effective in stopping Hitler. They were the first to be sent to Dachau, one of the concentration camps. After the stage of polarization, you have preparation. That is the stage in which the people who are planning the genocide actually do prepare for it and plan it. You'll find arming the groups who are going to carry out the genocide, and more of these extremist Hindutva people are being armed so that they can, in fact, carry out a genocide against Muslims. In fact, there have even been, as you know, incitements to genocide in which certain monks have actually advocated killing Muslims, openly advocated it. Under most laws in most countries, to advocate or to incite genocide or to incite any crime is itself a crime. And yet these people have not been arrested. They haven't been prosecuted. This is called incitement to genocide, which itself is a crime. So this preparation stage is very, very important in the process. The next stage is persecution. Persecution is when you actually do begin to persecute the group that's going to be victimized, in which you have mobs that will attack whole neighborhoods where Muslims live, for instance. And we've already seen that. We've seen it in Delhi in 2020. We saw it in Gujarat in 2002. We've seen, in other words, this kind of mob action already happening in India. And the reason why it's so important is because that sort of persecution prepares the population for actual extermination, for actual genocide. If there are no consequences from the persecution, in other words, if nobody's prosecuted for it, then the people who are planning the genocide know they can get away with it. That is why it's so important that so many of these people are being completely scot-free for any of the crimes they commit. The vigilantes, the other people who are inciting genocide, and so forth. And the persecution of Muslims has particularly been present in Assam, where you have a lot of Muslims who couldn't prove their citizenship in very severe fear that they will be deported. Finally, the final stage in genocide is extermination, where you actually have killing. And you should understand another thing about genocide. It isn't just killing. Genocide also includes creating conditions for a group that are intended to destroy the group. They are also creating serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. They include hindering births within the group, and they include taking away the children of the group. In other words, there are more than just killing is genocide. What we have in India could be, for instance, removing health care from Muslims, making it very hard for Muslims to have full civil rights, to basically make Muslims have no legal recourse if crimes have been committed against them. This kind of extermination phase is what India has not yet reached, but we hope it will never reach. That is why we must fight this. We must fight it very strongly now, because, as I said before, Genocide Watch predicted genocide in Rwanda 5 years before it happened. We are predicting genocide in India now, and we hope it won't happen, because all of these stages can in fact be opposed by resolute and disciplined and organized countermeasures. In other words, where, for instance, people are inciting genocide, they need to be arrested. Incitement, it's a crime. They need to be arrested. We need, in other words, to stop this whole process. I am very grateful to be able to speak to the IMC, because I think your group is one of the key groups in preventing this genocide that, unfortunately, we see possible in the future of India. Thank you.
Excellent.